in the electoral process? What do women bring? With politics, would it look different? The campaigning, would it look different if women weren't involved? And if women are involved, and I always ask this question, if women are involved and women are 51% of the population, then why are there not many more women in politics? So we'll be having that kind of conversation this evening. So actually, let me just start with that. Let me start with you, Joyce. So what is it in your experience that you feel that women bring to an election or to a campaign that would not exist if it was a purely male field, just pure male?
Well, anyway, certainly good evening to you and good evening to Golda. An absolute pleasure to be here with you all. You know, I am actually trying very hard to think in what perspective, in what context, or even how to respond to this particular one. To say that you can possibly have anything without women would be an aberration, a distortion of the natural factor. I mean, even in the days of Genesis, before we even knew what men and women were, when Adam was put in the Garden of Eden, a female was put there to support him. The Bible has many of such stories where a female has been selected to support the male factor. So certainly there can be no aspect or facet of our lives really that does not necessarily reflect a female factor. I think that when you come to our politics in Ghana, since I can remember, even in Kwame Nkrumah's day, remember that the independence fight, there were lots of women in that movement who played very key roles. Even in prehistoric days, we had the women such as Yaa Santwa, who were warriors in their day. So I genuinely don't think that there can be anything really that we do in this world successfully without necessarily that female factor.
Right.
And then when you come to politics, I think that because we do have the male and female components, the natural order is that we should have just as many men as women doing politics.
Okay.
But unfortunately, sometimes it has not necessarily been the case. But I would always indicate that there are at least 52% of our populace that is women or that is female. So certainly you would expect to see half of that number. If we have a parliament of 275, you would want to see at least half of them being women.
Yeah.
If you go into a university campus, for example, you would want to see that at least half of them are women. Women are indeed a very huge demographic. But somehow in the actual line of decision making, we have not represented that over 50% were women.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the key areas where we can start to encourage, to inspire, to open up doors for even better participation is in the arena of politics. Largely because that is more of a higher platform. It is also an opportunity for us, for example, to showcase that you can be female, you can be a professional, you can be a mother, you can be a wife, you can be all of these things and still be a very active practitioner of politics. You can be a strategist to politicians, you can be a campaigner for politicians, you can be a member of parliament, it's also part of politics. You can be a development or an instrument of development, it is also a type of politics. You can be, for example, the framers of the 1992 Constitution. There were men, there were women, there were market women, people from all walks of life. I think genuinely that Ghana as a country has had examples of women across the board, not just in politics, in law, in accounting, in finance. If you look at around you in terms of women CEOs, many of these banks are actually led by women. You look across the country, in most of our farming communities, you have many women who are playing very, very key roles. So certainly in the whole value chain, you have women who have played very, very, very important roles. I think the only place where we have stopped short is that we have yet to have a female president or vice president of Ghana. And so I think that that is where we are now. And to take it even a step further, if you look, for example, at the National Democratic Congress, of which I am a member, we have not just gone out there to nominate a female running mate, but she's a female who qualifies to occupy any position that she so desires or so chooses. And I believe that as a woman, you will only do something if it's something you really want to do, something you are passionate about, something that means something to you, or something that gives you a certain meaning or expression. Unlike men, women do not do things on the exigency of it. They don't do it just out of pleasure. Most often than not, women will consider many other things before they even take a leap of faith.
Yeah.
So imagine a woman accepting the nomination to serve as a running mate to one of the largest, if not the largest, political parties in Ghana. That within itself is a huge step. So I think that maybe we have actually come of age. And of course, don't forget that there are women too who are leaders of other political parties. Maybe they are just so much smaller, but at least it is also quite incisive that we do have some of these political parties, such as the PPP, that has another big sister of ours, currently as their flag bearer.
Yes.
Then we also have the NDP, but of course, unfortunately, because President Rawlings has passed, I have not heard very much of the former First Lady and her campaign in that sense. But certainly, I think that across the country, the woman's voice, the female voice, is just as important as the male voice.
Okay.
It is even just as loud in many sectors of our Ghanaian economy, in terms of our social development, in terms of our religion. You have many females now who are pastors, who are reverends, who are preaching to many congregations. Even for our Muslim brothers and sisters, we have females who actually deliver the utbah, as they call it. So I think that in all of our lives, genuinely, beyond being mothers and wives and sisters and aunts and all of that, I think that women in Ghana have indeed been around for a very long time.
For a very long time.
Yes.
Golda, let's talk about in terms of strategy, or let's talk about from moving from strategy to power. Because I'm listening to Joyce, and she talks about the fact that women have always been in supporting roles. And I think that women and men have been comfortable accepting that women are supporting. But it's kind of shifting now because women are wanting to do more than support. We're wanting to be the ones in the driving seat who are able to make the decisions or veto the, whatevers and all of that. So where is the woman best placed from a strategy point of view?
Right.
Supporting or in front? And how do we get there?
Right. Just as, I don't know, maybe a slight intro, very quickly, is just to say that I strongly believe in this rather new concept of return on equality.
Okay.
As opposed to return on equity or return on investment, right? And it's the concept that says that there are certain far-reaching benefits that come from having females on board your team or your workplace or your management or just in the project you're carrying on, right? So it's been of interest to me because, in my opinion, there are very intentional approaches to it around the world that we haven't begun to tap into properly.
Okay.
And if we come to the strategy of it, as in how do women find more value or bring more value as supportive roles or in the leadership, it varies. It's just like leadership has various types and they must work in combination. It's the same way for women. You have soft power and you have outright power. It depends on what you're great at and what moves things. I believe that probably before we got into the contemporary times of democracy, we might have had a lot of cultural instances where royal females and the females in cultural leadership exercised a huge amount of power that was not as overt.
So you mean like the queen mothers and the king makers
and even the ones who are part of that structure who might not be queen mothers, but they form part of that space. It might not be overt, but they wielded so much power and control. And I think for most of them, you would find that they actually succeeded in ruling from behind or ruling quietly without people being, people are aware that the mother of the Asantehene holds a huge amount of power, right? But they would not come out and say, why is she not the Asantehene?
Okay.
Right? So much as people might not give this very aggressive name to it, there is a recognition of the fact that that is pure power. And it might not be in the front, in quotes, but it very
It
much
exists.
exists,
Okay.
right? So I think it depends on what we're trying to name and how we're trying to place it. If your power is most potent from a particular place, I am of the opinion that you forget about whether it's covertly or overtly prominent. It's about the power and what it brings. It's about hitting the optimum in that position of power. And I think because we've been made to feel in contemporary times that you need to always be in the front or always be in a named role to be powerful, we tend to forget sometimes that there's a lot of strategy that makes women very powerful beyond just what we want to see. In terms of politics, I would say that we have to do much more intentional empowerment of our women. Women seem to be very close to their constituents when it comes to political leadership. A lot of women across Africa who seem to be activists or very powerful, you would realize that it's because there are certain constituents who give them that power, who they are very close to. And if they are very distant from them, it becomes a bit of a problem. They seem to lose the trust and the confidence those people have in them.
Okay.
And it's something that may not be demanded as much from men. So from my perspective, working with a lot of activists, this is what I've come to understand. So when they begin to build families, when they begin to try and mentor people to take over, then people feel they have been abandoned. You are no more doing what you should be doing for us, because there's not the appreciation and understanding of what form of power they are most potent in and at which point in time in that journey, right? So the more we become intentional in helping our females to understand the various ways in which we can build power and be powerful, the more we'll be able to actually get more women into positions that bring power to females.
Yeah. Okay. So,
But I think sometimes, genuinely, we also have to look at the aspects, especially if we're talking about just our formal environments,
Right.
be it politics, be it in some professional environments. Look, you also have to be willing.
yeah.
It is one thing giving us the opportunity,
Yeah.
whoever that is, I don't know. It is also another thing being readily available or willing.
Yes.
I have always known times when, as a friend I spoke to recently, and then she puts out all these job adverts, and she finds that women are very tentative even when they are very well qualified. They're not too sure how to respond to these adverts. You don't know just how much information to put out there. There's just a way about women that sometimes makes it almost impossible. And I also think it's also our environment. Sometimes there's a joke like we shared when I walked in, where we are all sitting in together and you'd find yourself maybe in a room with many younger people, etc. Somebody walks in, and if it's a lady and gentleman, they would call the woman, oh, mommy or auntie. And then they'll call the gentleman by a certain professional tag or something.
Yeah.
There are several ways in which people try to take something away from, that sort of thing. So you see, there's times when, even when a woman is at that level, there are all these little things that somehow, there's a time when I used to think that even when you meet older men, or men generally, refer to any woman in any position of power, be it in the classroom, in the bank, wherever, as mama or as mommy, it can be disparaging sometimes, even in how they do it.
Yeah.
You get that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, where women lead, be it from the back or from the front, there's always that something that tells you, one, don't be too aggressive, don't be too bossy. Even when you really want to say it a certain way, oh, don't put it that way. And I also think that it is also because we give all these names also to women. There's all these derogatory words. You see a strong woman and people have all sorts of ways that they describe you. And there's this strange cliche about women not liking each other, being their own enemies.
Yeah.
But I have found that as females go higher, you even forget that you work with another female or that you are working with another man. You realize that you become very single-minded.
Yeah.
You are very focused on what you're doing. And look, there's every good reason why we must all continue to advocate for women to leave the very normal groups or spheres where we're used to seeing women. So you can come into that environment that challenges you. For example, if I am a midwife in a hospital, most people will expect that when I walk into a hospital, the midwife should be female.
Yeah.
But we do have male,
Yeah, exactly.
male midwives as well. Exactly. So it is that thing. And then there's also a time when, in fact, most teachers you met were actually women.
Yeah.
And so you'd find every young girl thinking, oh, I'd love to be a teacher.
Teacher or a nurse. Or,
Absolutely, because
very, yeah.
these are the normal roles that we are accustomed to. For all our traditional queen mothers, for example, in some customary settings, who are actually extremely powerful, how often do you see them exercise that power? Behind the scenes, those in power would know who indeed exercises the power. Like she gave an example of the Otumfo's mother, who would receive all this respect because she happens to be the mother of the king at a certain point. But if you don't go around there, you're not a courtier, how would you really know who actually has all of this power? For example, you meet all these queen mothers. Even when you go and visit the chief's palace, they sit differently. You don't find queen mothers and the chiefs or the kings sitting in the same place. You know, they have separate seats and all of that. And when you go even to a community where the leader happens to be a queen mother, it's still different.
Yeah.
So I always have maintained that women would still need to be willing, to be able to take up the roles and not think maybe I may not be as good. Maybe I'll need to become more masculine to be able to do it. Maybe I need some validation from some other man or other. But of course, if you overdo it too, you become that woman that nobody wants to appreciate. So it's a very
tricky
finding
the balance.
Finding the balance is extremely difficult and very tough. So what happens is, and I always use examples of other women, we all celebrate women achievement in our own way. We like to emulate them sometimes. We even want to build our lives upon them. I know women whose marriages even are fashioned along other powerful couples that they know. They see everything about them. They want to live like them. They want their partners even to act and behave like them. They themselves live out another person's life and think that is genuinely what makes them happy. But you know, when you come into politics in particular, you find that most of these things that you've probably gotten very acclimatized to simply don't work. No matter how well qualified you are, no matter how confident or sassy and strong and bold you are, you would have to compete with your male folk.
Yeah.
How often do you hear someone say that I'm leaving the seat because a female is contesting?
You don't.
You don't.
And it raises a point that Golda was saying about voting and about the fact that should we just vote for women just because they are women? Like, you know, you vote for a woman because she's standing, so let me just vote for her, for a woman. Or if there's a man and a woman who are competing, and for example, even if they have the same qualification or experience, do you vote for the woman just because she's a woman? And in the case where the man is actually better, because I mean that's democracy, where we're fighting exactly. So like, how do we? But then it brings me to the question. I mean, should we just vote for women because they have been bold enough to stand? If we want representation, should we just do that?
But remember that in some communities, somebody will do that happily.
Yeah,
happily. Someone walks to the ballot box. And all they want is to vote for any woman who is there.
But not enough.
And I met
clearly.
a friend of mine who said to me, Joyce, you know something? I made sure that the female won in my constituency at the assembly level. I didn't mind whether she was well qualified, whether she was as well spoken, but I believed in my heart that she would do a good job for the community. And this is someone like us. So that makes sense. Then you have those who would go and think, oh, but she's female, why not? She's even younger than the man. She may not have as much money. She may not be as popular, but I think she has actually put herself up. That alone counts for something. There's nothing wrong with that. In any case, how many women are we talking about?
Not a lot.
In a 275 parliament house, we have only 35 women from both sides. That's woefully inadequate.
Yeah.
You understand? So in a country like ours, I'll be very surprised that I'll see gold and I'll think, oh, maybe she's not NDC, oh, she's not NPP, she's not even PPP. Oh, you know, but I'm sure I'll think, oh, okay, she doesn't have to be any of those things.
She's a woman.
Excellent. I think we should allow people to make those choices too.
I I'm very certain that, I mean, even if we tell people to not do that, people would still definitely make their choice. Although I tend to believe that there's always a trend that feeds one's choices. People will choose something out of a particular context or out of a personal history, and perhaps these kind of questions come up because if we had, for example, had 10, 20 years of women being given opportunity, not based on merit, but because we want more women
representation,
and they have been very impressive. They have showcased a lot of achievements and impact and transformation. I'm very certain that most of these questions will not come up. But as it is, the fact is that we have not really seen a lot of transformation from women. If I ask any random 5 people out of 10, if your MP is a female, what has she brought over the past 4 years to your constituency? Majority of them really do not feel they have experienced anything transformative. 1 or 2 will have impacted. So I think that's what is causing us to really be more specific about what we want to see in the women we want. So somebody mentioned today on social media that if you don't see any woman you think is worth voting for amongst these women, step in and stand up the next time.
Yeah.
Because you might feel you are more competent. You should step in and yes,
stand up.
Stand up to it, or encourage somebody who you think, And I think the conversation should keep going, because I definitely would want to know what someone can bring to the table before I vote. Although I will definitely consider them because they are female, I will still ask that question, that what exactly can you bring to the table? So I think it's because of the history and the context that way where we are. And I'm hoping that the next 4 years will give us less of a reason to keep asking these questions when women are brought, to us to vote for.
I think I would look at it probably slightly differently from what Golda says. Maybe because I have actually come into this space and I've probably been here for a little while. I am inclined to think largely that, first and foremost, what are the issues that we have presently that actually are issues that affect women, issues that will probably make lives better for women? What are the real things that women will want to see? What is society looking for? I always use an interesting article I read about COVID and female managers and administrators, and how in countries that had female leadership, even the pandemic has been better managed. You understand? So what are the real issues we have as Ghanaians, as Africans generally? We still have a lot of poverty. We still have huge numbers of rural poor, and most of those ones are women. We still have large numbers of people who are totally uneducated. A large chunk of whom are women. We still have issues with maternal mortality, basic.
But who is going to fight for us?
But that's the point.
If those
so
of us are not standing?
It is why I'm building a case.
Okay.
You understand?
Okay.
Because she said that she will still want to ask what the person brings to the table. And when you watch even in the parliament, with the number of women we have, whenever issues to do with children or women have come up, you see how the women react. At that time, you don't even know who is NDC, who is NPP. They fight as though it was a matter that mattered to either of the political parties.
Okay. I see what you mean.
They always added them when it comes to matters of this kind. And I recall the very serious debates about domestic violence bill years ago. Women were actually up to defend the issue of marital rape. It had been a subject that had engaged many activists for many years. And our men folk were adamant. Of course, you don't expect a man to understand what marital rape means.
No, you don't.
You do. But as a woman, we all know when it's no longer funny and you know that something is not right, whether it's in a marriage or just a relationship, whatever. But we all know. So these things always come up. When there are matters to do with children who have been abused, there is always a way that women across the divide will react, irrespective. So you should always ask yourself. And of course, a few weeks ago, a young student asked me, but Auntie Joyce, if Professor Nana is coming, but what do you think is in it for me? And it's a question people would ask ordinarily. So I asked her, I said, what do you think a woman at Professor Nana's level and age would want to do for Ghana. I'm sure at this time she has probably literally achieved just about all that. I'm sure even beyond her wildest dreams. And then suddenly she's made a running mate. I am sure this is somebody who would certainly be thinking about the things that all of us in that category are thinking about.
Yeah.
No matter how young or how much older we are. I mean, we had examples of former First Lady, Madam Jimen Rawlings, for example, who stood up and was one of the key activists for a lot of women empowerment initiatives.
Yeah, a lot.
You have Madame Sheriaite, who is still in that field. And I tell you, these are some of those unsung heroes. Women who have achieved great things. Auntie Sherry is a microbiologist. You should hear her on COVID. And I remember when the pandemic first broke, she was one of the first to tell me about washing hands and how not to touch stuff all the time and even wear gloves if you can. She had time to educate just about everybody. She spent weeks in the markets. You know, so sometimes it's also because as women, I think that to a certain extent, we don't even recognize that power that we have.
We have, yeah.
And we don't use it effectively. It doesn't matter whether it's in politics, it's in economics, wherever it is you find yourself. I know women who would go to probably a hospital and come back, I'm not too sure. Sometimes I wonder about female doctors. What if I have a choice between a male doctor and a female doctor? I wouldn't even have to think about it.
I would like to interject,
You know,
I mean,
so
on some of
sometimes-
the points that Joyce makes, that she makes valid points. The only issue is if I put myself in the position where I would want to try to remember enough instances where things have come up on the floor of Parliament that concern women, where we've had a lot of feedback from the women in Parliament, I would fail to remember enough of them.
Yeah.
So there's the
There's
situation
certainly not
of
that many, yeah. I
yes,
hear you, yeah.
there's a situation of maybe it's time we began showcasing enough of what we do for
Okay.
people to appreciate that
Yeah.
these things happened, and at those points in time we did stand up for women and we did stand up for girls and children, but we are not showcasing enough. The men are much better at showcasing what
showcasing.
they are doing. The women
But
are not.
Gulda, they have the numbers too. They have louder voices.
We should be more intentional, I think. I think most of our challenge as females trying to get more women in politics is because in Ghana we are not very intentional about how we showcase our achievements. Someone will look at me and say, you're very brash and very resilient about how you show off. Well, I don't care.
Because the
I-
thing
it's-
is, it's as if women should be a bit more demure, a bit more
modest.
modest, a bit
All the
more,
time.
Yes.
yes. So
You
that
know,
doesn't really
yes.
work for us.
Yes. And I think if enough women are enabled to show
Speak
their
up and speak out
achievements,
about who they are.
we would
Yeah.
see and hear more of what they're doing, and we would not be in doubt.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I
But
think
you see,
we
I
agree
also
on-
think that even where we hear and see more, women are still a touch reluctant.
Yes.
It's just the way that we are.
Yeah.
There's just something about us.
Is it Ghanaian women? Is it African women?
I used to think that way. But I remember in 2005, I was on a short course to one of the states in the United States of America. And a female Supreme Court judge, it's very rare to meet a female Supreme Court judge in America. And I was struggling with my son, trying to find a place where I'd leave him whilst I went into the room. And there are these little creches around the building. And then I think something dropped in my friend, and she goes, oh, there goes another young mother starting all over again. Oh, I'm so happy I don't have to do that again. But I'll encourage you anyway. Keep it up. I've been through it, and everybody's been through it. But I sat back and I thought about that very little encounter and how profound it sounded. It actually made my day so much better. It did. It took all the stress off me. Sometimes we don't realize the little things we do that actually prop up other
Prop each
females.
other, yeah.
You imagine how it feels. You're in a class of about maybe 58 and everybody is on time. And then you are struggling with this young lad, struggling to leave him. You are already late. You know how that can be.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you see this very grown-up woman, someone you don't even know. In fact, at the time, I didn't even know who she was.
And so accomplished.
Yes. And she found it so normal and didn't think I should feel harassed
About
or
it,
look
yeah.
so worried. And that it
Yes.
was not even so bad to be late.
Yes.
It meant that I had been encouraged. The next morning, I'll probably do just that and be sure to be there as well. But another person could have said something and I probably would have left.
Right.
Women
Right.
are different from men. You find that when women are in HR, in admin, you see how they relate to other younger women who have certain challenges. It's totally different. So for a very long time, if you notice, every institution you went to, HR admin, there, women. So there is something about us too, and how we also relate to females in a certain category.
Yeah. I get that.
I get that a lot. And sometimes we're a little bit more reluctant, we are unsure, but you don't have similar uncertainties when you're dealing with a man.
No, you
I have a
don't.
question for
there's
Joyce.
something.
Go ahead.
Based on the fact that she's probably had much more exposure in some of these
yeah.
things, right? And it's something that I think about constantly. I've been accused in many ways of being a perfectionist and not being polite about it. And sometimes I come across females, I'm sure you Googled that out, I'm going to say females who are younger than I am.
Touche.
They have you.
But I come across females who are younger and who are asking me to mentor them or give them feedback about something they've done. And I share very factually.
And candidly.
Well, nowadays I do try to be very kind about
Exactly.
it. But I do give feedback that is honest. And if your work is bad, it's
I'll
bad,
tell you.
because I feel like too many people mollycoddle us and don't give us the facts. So you can cry a bit, but at least you know this work is bad and you should improve, right? And in my experience, most of them just simply just cut me off, don't come back. They feel it's too brutal. How have you come across situations like that, and how do you handle it?
Plenty.
Because I think it's key to how we grow into power.
Into power and into politics.
But those who genuinely mean well, they take it in good faith.
Right.
Like children.
Okay.
It's not every child you can train in a certain way, whereas some are very easy to train.
Right.
Similarly with adults, I have a whole army of young women and men. And you know, I always tell people, oh, I know those who are just coming to see what your next outfit looks like, and they're not even really serious about being mentored by me.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's those ones. There is some that I have had on my sleeves probably for years. You meet them, you'd probably think it was Joyce you were talking to. Straight.
Right.
You tell them off and they'll be upset for a few minutes. Oh, Auntie Joyce, you know what you said was true.
Right.
It's very simple. So I think that there is those who are genuine. There is some who just come because there's a little fluke out there about wanting to have a powerful person mentor you. You can text me, you can call me. You know, that kind of vibe. But there are some who are genuine. They'll come to you for advice, for guidance. They seek opinions from all sorts of things.
For everything, and they remain.
And they remain.
Yeah.
And even the next morning, you'll be surprised. Oh, come in, oh, madam, thank you. You know, this thing you said yesterday, it's normal.
Right.
You know, I always tell people that when I left my last place of work, most of the young people I trained were solid people. And I used to tease them that, you know, I should get people like you to be my nannies and teach my kids, because you are some of the sharpest you can find anyway. And I know that maybe some of them would probably be offended. See this woman. How can you think someone like me would be, you know? But there are others who are happy to do those errands for me.
Of course.
They'll pick the kids, my son from school, help him with homework. And you should see them when they all saw him after 4 or 5 years now, a teenager. Oh, wow. So there are some who are happy to do it.
Right.
Others genuinely will be very resentful. But I think that those who are willing to learn and willing to change, they are always very happy.
Right.
And you know, with us also in a certain bracket, people think that you just arrived here. It's been a very long process.
True.
A certain metamorphosis, a certain reformation. You have also had to work on yourself to get to that level. In fact, most of the things that young people come to us to ask questions about, you've been there, you've seen it. You know, I wouldn't say that because I had one female boss who was really not so nice, that every other female boss is like
It's
that.
that way. But related to what you're talking about, the metamorphosis.
Morphosis.
Yes, that's one. Related to that and all of that, do we expect more of women than we do of men? Because sometimes you hear women, you know, we talk more about the mentoring and the grooming and the changing and the growing into. And sometimes you see young men just plunge, no experience in life, nothing. They just, you know, dive straight into politics and, hey, Hey, we are
normal.
ready to go.
I hear it all the time. Oh, the men hit harder. The boys hit so hard. But go and check what brings the votes. Is that soft voice? Is that voice of reason? That voice of logic?
Right.
Is that a certain pseudo, not so aggressive approach?
The detail-orientedness.
Absolutely. Yes. It's as simple as that. So no matter what you say, you will still find that no matter where you find yourself, there's nothing like a powerful woman. There's nothing like a bright woman, even in a small environment. Somehow it will show through. Look, even in the times when we get to work, for example, when a woman gets into a management position, see how she approaches her tasks.
Yeah.
Spot on. And you know, I always love this quote by Margaret Thatcher. If a woman has juggled children and juggled household duties and juggled managing her home and her life, being a prime minister really is no big deal.
I mean, I love that picture. I think
Absolutely.
it's the New Zealand
Yes.
Prime Minister breastfeeding in Parliament. And it's just...
Very normal. Because it will happen.
Well, yes, but speaking about breastfeeding, I want to talk about something that came up as well. You know, a lot of times the role that women play in elections, you see women in tight t-shirts, tight jeans, and the logo of you know, whatever political parties on the back of their t-shirts, you know, and they've posed and they are showing assets. And do we, you know, when we allow ourselves to be objectified like that, are we doing ourselves a disservice, or does the end justify the means?
Oh, I wear the t-shirts too. I hold the placards too. But I never think it's because I'm actually exhibiting my assets.
But I don't think that anybody would say that.
Would ask you to turn around and take
you
take
know.
a picture of your back.
I mean, so,
No, but I wear them too.
I mean, so there's that, you know,
Yes.
there's you, and then there's also that.
So there's all of that.
Okay.
And it's all part of the whole thing.
It's all
that
part
makes
of
it,
the...
Exactly.
Okay, so you don't feel that we do ourselves a
No, I mean,
disservice when
those
we
most,
use-
look, most of the young women you see across the political divide who do that, they are very well educated. Look, some of them are entrepreneurs. They have businesses. They do all sorts of things. But in the few weeks running up to an election, they would want to portray their political parties in a certain way, sell our policies or market them in a certain way. And of course, these days, you know, life is all about social media. Taking of photographs is now very, very
So you want to
ordinary.
do what will make you seen. I guess like President Akufo-Addo will say, "Oh, die, be die."
Not necessarily. that is a bit extreme.
Okay.
But I think, you know, at least they are well clad. Even if they are showing their assets, they are well covered.
Golda, what
and,
do you think?
know.
You're surprisingly quiet on this issue.
Oh, I mean, I already made a comment that nobody's gonna ask Auntie Joyce to turn around and take a picture.
No, they
I
wouldn't
don't
dare.
see that happening.
No,
You
no.
see, so
No, they wouldn't dare.
in my opinion, I think some of them.
But you know, that's the lighter side of politics too, I think. I mean,
I
that's the
agree.
lighter side of
I
it,
agree,
yeah.
and you can't completely do
Yeah.
away with it
No.
because people want to win,
Yeah.
and they will do what they need to
Yeah.
do. I simply think that much as it happens, perhaps we can as we denounce what happens in the music industry, it's only right to start denouncing this in the political industry, because genuinely some of them do go overboard, and you find it's a bit crass, if I can put it that way, to have people doing that in the name of we want to win. Yeah, but it will happen.
Okay, so let's talk. We have about 10 minutes, and then we have to hand over to the sports guys. There's a match, Manchester United, I think, versus PSG. Yeah, I was well schooled by Gary L. Smith this morning about that match. So that's going to come on in a little bit. But let me come to you, Joyce, because you've lived the political dream. I mean, in the NDC government, you know, you were part of, you know, you were in the core, you were in the middle, you know. What are the real challenges? Because for a lot of us, we stand on the outside and we have these conversations about women, you know, or let's get women into politics, let's do this, let's do that. But I hear you talking about the fact that, hey, I was traveling with, you know, my son, and I'm breastfeeding, and I'm doing this, and I have a home to run, and nobody's expectations of me are going to lessen because I'm in politics and give me some sort of leeway, you know, and say, oh, okay, Auntie Joyce is in politics, so her children can be unkempt and her house can be basa. I know, but you know what I mean? So what is it? What does it really look like from the inside, so that we're not just encouraging women we're actually telling them, Charlie, this is what...
No. you know, there are many facets to all of this. and it doesn't matter whether you're in politics or any other field of endeavor, really. Have you been on a political campaign trail and you've needed to change or use a restroom?
I can imagine.
Just cast your mind around.
In the middle of nowhere.
In the middle of nowhere. Wow. Yes. It's as basic as you can possibly imagine.
Yeah.
And you know that even women at a certain time of the month, and you are out there in the middle of nowhere.
And things have gone left.
Excellent. And of course, in most cases, it might just be you being female with a bunch of guys around you. There's all of that. Like how I remember the debate about whether sanitary towels should be given to the girl child for free and should be manufactured or not. Most people really had never lived it. They didn't actually understand. And of course, that is a matter on which I would have expected that most women who had either taught in a girls' school or thought about it even would have stood very firmly that society should even have campaigned in support of that policy. Because if you've been a teacher in any school where there are young girls, even in our peri-urban communities, you know young girls who have this serious challenge. It's very normal.
Yeah.
There's only a certain context or conversation where you find some children within certain environments who are blessed enough to have access to these things. Some kids don't even know that such things exist.
Yeah.
But they will still have to go through the same processes because they are female. So even for the ordinary mundane things, women will face challenges. When you come to mothers who have young children, for example, it is a reason why suddenly we are trying to develop a concept where offices like yours will have places for children to relax or change their nappies, or mothers will just go to the side of the room and breastfeed and things like that. These are very ordinary challenges. And I don't know whether I'm allowed to say this.
Go ahead.
Imagine the very first time you have to actually take a leak or pee. And there's absolutely no facility.
Yeah.
In fact, sometimes you are better off doing it outside than trying to go into a facility.
Yeah.
So imagine. And there's all of that.
On the campaign trip.
Straight.
Gosh, it sounds hectic.
Straight.
It sounds hectic.
Yes. And rural Ghana is as rural as you can imagine.
As rural as you can get.
As rural as you can possibly imagine.
Golda, how do we make it easier?
It doesn't get easier.
Thank you.
It doesn't. I mean, like Joyce, I've also been all over the country. My very first motorbike accident was somewhere on the Watumu Road, right? Very bad accident.
Motorcycles are the most
yes,
commonly used.
I've seen them transporting pregnant women in labor and some
and a mother and her child.
Exactly.
So, it doesn't get easier.
It never gets easier.
And I mean, coupled with the more, cruel challenges that are thrown up these days because, people have gotten very creative about the kind of challenges they can throw in your pathway to, eliminate you as an opponent. It gets terrible. So I believe that's why we have to be very intentional about creating people who can step into power. And we need to be able to start having that conversation and that strategy.
It also means we need to be honest about what it takes.
We do.
Because I think this is one of the few conversations where I've actually asked, how do we make it easier? And both of you have practically jumped on me like, it's not going to get easier. But most people, let's do this and let's do this. But putting a realistic spin on it helps. So that this is what, even the Bible says that, who goes into war without counting the cost.
Yeah.
So I guess we're saying the cost is high.
Yes.
So if you want to go into it, you should be prepared
just the cost,
to.
The demands on you.
Yeah.
Just as high. The challenges you face also, largely because of your sex, equally so.
What are some of the sex-specific challenges, apart from the ones that you've mentioned?
Those are the most important.
What about the dealing with men? Because you're dealing, the ratio is maybe 1 to 20,
yes,
1 to 30.
As you go higher, it gets thinner.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
As in it's
male,
less women.
Female thing. No matter what.
The attempts on you,
men and there's
just
you as a female. It gets better as you go higher.
Okay.
Yes, as we all start off, certainly. You will have all of these issues with so many men. Maybe you don't talk right. I have a beautiful example, maybe just before we leave, without mentioning any names. So I remember once, whilst I was still on my other job, I hadn't come to the ministry as a minister yet. And then there was a day when there was lunch being served, and everybody was having lunch and all of that. And I was just walking around. Then I heard a young man literally screaming at another lady. Oh, you didn't even give me water to wash my hands. Oh, how could you not have... I was shocked, so I walked right back. I said, what did you just say to her? He says, oh, you know, she just served me the food. How can you do that? A whole sister like you. And I said, oh, really? Is that what you guys do here? And I looked at her, I said, you know something? Please remember that they're your colleagues. Why are you even serving them anyway?
Yeah.
She was so shocked. I said, why are you serving them?
Yeah.
If you were just doing it out of the goodness of your heart.
Now he's shouting at you that you didn't do that.
Exactly. And of course, as for me, these are the things I have with men all the time. So that's part of it. I know men who meet my husband and say, hey, so JB is your wife. Whoa, you really do well. But I think you'll be surprised.
They tell him that he does well.
Yes, I said my husband is one of those extremely stubborn, very, 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 very focused kind of guy. You should know that he's not the kind of person that I can bully. Certainly not. You know, but they tell him that all the time. I mean, I walk into a room, we're in a meeting. Oh, Amir, but why are you even saying that? As for you women, oh, I'll fix you. Nicely. Oh, that one, I don't spend 2 seconds on it. No matter how old you are. Straight away. Because you see, you also need to let people know that you have certain rules straight away.
Yeah.
Because genuinely people like to take
Advantage.
advantage.
Yeah. So boundaries
Imagine
immediately.
me like working for President Mahama, for example. I mean, making tea for President Mahama is normal. When he walks and I can see his face, I know, oh, the boss has to have some coffee. So yes, why not? But it doesn't mean that just anybody walks in with him and starts, oh, JB, you know, oh, no, that one, immediately I'll come out and deal with you. Fast. So nobody asked me to do
Because
those
it's
things.
your decision to offer kindness.
Absolutely.
But when it's
Good.
demanded,
And
as
you
if
see the
it's a
difference is that
role,
President Mahama would actually even offer it to you sometimes. He's happily going to pick it up for you. So you have that. But you know, other men are not so
and not so, yes.
good.
Definitely. Well, we wish him all the best.
So that's part of it.
As do we wish.
Oh, today we've been on your station, I think, literally the whole day.
Oh, yes, for today there's been fire across.
I realize
all across. But so we have Frances joining us on the line.
Oh, wow.
Even
What
though
happened to her?
She was caught up in traffic,
Oh, no.
yes. So let's just say good evening, Frances, and thank you for joining us by phone, even though
Good evening. Is this MFA or?
No, it's not MFA, it's Animwaa.
Animwaa. Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's
Pardon.
all right. Not a problem at all. So we're pretty much at the end of the conversation.
Absolutely.
So I would just ask, from your experience campaigning for Adenta, what would you say last minute, to the women out there who are campaigning for parliamentary seats and who are also just on the campaign trail, pushing their candidates? What advice would you give them? We have 3 or 4 days more. What would you say to them?
Oh, really? I'll just say good evening and hello to Joyce. The basic issue about campaigning is that women are the majority of the campaigners. We are really pushing the campaigns. And for the female candidates, I believe they have a lot of capacity these days and can stand up to the men. And the youth, rather, you'll be surprised, rally around the women. And the women, rather, go and rally around the males. It's actually like opposite. So all I'll encourage all our women is that push forward, move hard, do the grassroots thing, stick to your protocols, and then make sure that your messages go out right there. Look at the party manifesto, pick out the serious issues, and then move out with them. Because people really like to see a woman's capacity as much as a man would. Because in Ghana, I believe that the issue of discrimination, it's really on the low. The women are really on the ascendancy. So that's what I really have to say. So I was wishing everybody good luck, including my presidential candidate and all other candidates. All I'll say is that all our female candidates should just push so that we build a critical mass in parliament.
All right. I think I like the sound of that. All our female candidates should just push so that we build a critical mass in parliament, in government, because you have to be in parliament to be a minister, and
Absolutely.
there's a lot riding on us standing up and fighting for our place. I want to say a very big thank you to Frances for joining us on the phone lines. Frances Isiam. Also a very big thank you to you, Joyce Bawa Mokhtari. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us. And we're so grateful. Golda, thank you for passing by.
Pleasure.
And for bringing such an amazing perspective to the conversation. My name is Animwaa Anim-Addo. This is Strong and Sassy. I can't say next week we'll do this again because we probably might be in the thick of things, counting votes and all of that. But we'll be back as soon as all of that is over. Good luck, NPP, NDC, and to all the other political parties. And most importantly, let's remember that it's Ghana first, so let's keep the peace. Coming up next, George Addo Jr. and the team bring us Manchester United versus PSG. Don't go anywhere.
This is